Hi, I'm Paul Haenle, director of the Carnegie Tsinghua Center. Just hours after the Russian presidential election, we held this year's Carnegie Global Dialogue China-Russia panel, featuring Dmitri Trenin, director of the Carnegie Moscow Center, and Alexander Gabuev, senior fellow and chair in the Asia-Pacific program at the Carnegie Moscow Center, to analyze globally significant issues intersecting China, Russia, and the United States, and the geopolitical implications for the Asia-Pacific. President Putin enters his fourth term in office after a third term that saw an emboldened and resurgent Russia. The Russian annexation of Crimea, military support and intervention in Syria, interference in the U.S. and other Western political elections. These are just a few examples that show Moscow's more active foreign policy.
It is repositioning itself from the part of the West that Russia never made it, and from the empire that Russia is no longer, to a position in the north of the macro continent of Eurasia, which is not part of any alliance, any grouping, but has relations with just about everyone, except the relations with the West are pretty difficult, and the relations with the United States are pretty dangerous.
I think that President Putin is entering his fourth and last term by the current constitution. It looks like he won't be engaged in any meaningful structural economic reform. He won't be engaged in mending relationship with the West, but he will try to build a succession for him. A system where he grooms the next generation of managers and leaders in Russia, puts them in positions of power, and then will be able to retire in 2024 by staying a towering figure in national politics, not holding any official office.
China and Russia have also recently strengthened their own bilateral relations. Last summer, when President Xi Jinping visited Moscow, he referred to bilateral relations as their best time in history, and President Putin as his close personal friend.
For both countries to be sure that there will be no stab in the back, that they can safely demilitarize the border, look at the dangers that they're facing, the risks that they're facing elsewhere, fully recognizing that their common border is a stable place, and their neighbor is not going to attack them. And this is a big gain for both China and Russia that they managed to keep for the last 3 decades.
The reality is that this relationship is deeply asymmetrical, and Russia needs China more than China needs Russia. If we talk Russia, China is about 14% of Russia's external trade. And if we look at China, Russia is just 1.5% of China's trade. And that's a current, very stable trend where Russia is. So I think that this is reality that we're going to face for many years to come.
Russia is seeking to turn to China to develop this eastern facade. Actually, for Russia, the smart policy would be to look both east and west, just like the Russian eagle. So far, the eagle was mostly looking westward, not eastward.
China also doesn't want to be in a spotlight by defending North Korea, because Trump has linked this help on North Korean dossier with bilateral trade issue. And now China wants to appear as a helping hand on North Korea. But there is somebody who needs to protect these red lines, and that's exactly what Russia is doing for China.
We find ourselves in an important moment for relations between Russia, China, and the U.S. And I think in many ways it's a key turning point for the international system.
Nowadays, there is no one who is using the triangle to pursue any kind of policy. And if you look at just in abstract terms, if you just use the Kissingerian formula to describe the relationship today, today China would be in the position of the United States in 1972. China would have far better relations with both Russia and the United States than those two have between the two of them.
In the U.S., the Trump administration has recently designated both Russia and China as rival powers in the national security strategy. There's continued controversy over Russian involvement in the 2016 presidential election, and there's been an initiation of a series of trade actions against Beijing. This all demonstrates the headwinds that are facing the establishment of positive relations for the U.S. with both China and Russia.
So if the U.S. is continuing to push both simultaneously and frame them as adversary, as recent strategic U.S. documents show, that's exactly the dynamics which brings them together.
Thank you for watching. For more events and publications on China-related international issues, go to carnegietsinghua.org.